Hello Astrobro subscribers and welcome back to the final video of the Layers series where we talk about the layers of perception, how to elevate your consciousness, how to understand what elevating your consciousness even means, and what these different layers of perception are. I said we were going to 13 in the intro, and we still are, and here we are at 13. There are more layers than 13, as I've said multiple times in this series, but we're going here because after 13 it gets a lot more complicated, and there's some things we're going to need to backtrack and learn first before we go past 13 layers of perception, and this is already a lot to be dealing with already. So as a final reminder, this is not, the layer system is not a thing where once you get higher, it's better. It's just it's like a map. You know, your destination on a map is not necessarily better than your origin point, but the map is more of a guide to the territory of these levels of mental, these levels of perception. It's like going up a mountain in many ways. The top of the mountain is not morally superior to the bottom of the mountain in any way. You can just see farther from the top. So with that being said, let's get into the 13th layer. So the last layer I talked about was the 12th layer, which basically takes the that boundless, spontaneous, impulsive creativity from the 11th layer and puts it in a direction. So you can imagine the 11th layer as this flat plane of possibilities of basically speaking and building things into existence. And the 12th layer takes all of those possibilities, condenses all of their energy into one laser beam, and shoots it in one direction. So it's very intense, very focused, very dark. It's a very dark energy, and by dark I just mean yin, negative, not bad, but negative. In Hollywood, because Hollywood sort of has been unconsciously influenced by Judeo-Christian values, and in Judeo-Christian values, since Jesus is basically a solar/Jupiterian, he's a father god. He's always associated with golden light and truth and all these 13th layer things. The villain in most Disney movies, or in most Hollywood movies in general, is often portrayed in 12th layer colors. He's portrayed in black and purple and sort of glowing green and all these nighttime 12th layer colors. Just look at Thor and Loki from Marvel, right? Loki's always in black and blue and purple and green clothes. Thor's in red and gold. And this idea of the contrast can between dark and light can really, it can act as a helpful guide into the difference between the 12th and the 13th layer. But in reality, these things are more the same than they are different. The 12th layer is very singular in its focus, and the only real difference is the 13th layer is expansive. So you can imagine that, say the 11th layer is this plane, the 12th layer combines all the energy of that plane into a ray of light that shoots upwards, and that ray of light is like purple or blue or black or something like that. It's very dark colors. Now imagine that black light hits a disco ball or like a prism or something, and then it just explodes into this, all these infinite rays, this circle of golden light. And that would be like basically what the 13th layer is. It's all that energy of the 12th layer, but it's applied to a bunch of different projects simultaneously. So what does this look like in the world? Well, it looks like somebody like Elon Musk, somebody who is going to Mars, who's building solar-powered cars, who's building internet for Africa through Starlink, who's buying Twitter, like doing all this stuff at the same time. Like all of these projects that you could easily have a person spend their entire life on one of these projects, right? And they would maybe do it, maybe not do it to the same extent. But he's doing all of these things at once. So it looks like a person who is doing many lifetimes of work in one life. So, like, they're creating many different legacies simultaneously. So it's that focused energy, but it's going in multiple different directions. So it's not singularly minded. It's singular. It's that single-minded, totalizing focus, sort of applied to many different areas of life. So yeah, this is related to Sun. It's related to Jupiter. So the 13th layer is related to Sun and Jupiter. But if you remember the triangle at the top of the tree of life in the tree video that I made, that triangle is also a representation of the 13th layer. So you could think of that as Sun and Jupiter sort of in combination at the top of the tree of life. Now, again, because a lot of people are very influenced by Christian culture, they will think that this Sun-Jupiter triangle 13th layer thing is the good side, and then the rest is the bad side, and everything else is like something in between. And this is where Christian thinking kind of falls short, in my opinion, because things in life are not that simple. So you could have a negative 13th layer entity easily. And usually how this manifests is a very scattered person, somebody who is, it can manifest in a couple of ways. One of the ways is that, the most common way is that this person is like a firecracker that somebody just sort of threw on pavement. It's just sort of skittering around doing nothing, but making a lot of noise. These people are very energetic, but they lack focus. So that's one way that the 13th layer can manifest itself, like a flamethrower, but it's very unfocused and very sort of impotent. That's usually the way that does the least damage, although it can still be very unpleasant to be around and very unpleasant for the person who has this problem. Obviously, you could have the sort of evil megalomaniac who's controlling multiple different negative projects at the same time. Normally, if somebody's competent enough to do things like that, to like run multiple like evil organizations at the same time, they're not usually malevolent. Because remember, if you remember that what basically malevolence is the 7th layer. So it's this intense focus on desires, this sort of double time jackhammer frequency focus on desires. And most people in the 13th layer have gotten well past that, so they don't have this sort of, that sort of evil genius idea, that Dr. Evil idea. It almost never happens in reality, although it definitely can. Occasionally you get your people like your Stalins and your Hitlers and these people who are, doing multiple evil things simultaneously. So it can happen like that. Somebody at this level of consciousness can go wrong and rotten. But mostly what this looks like is somebody who is basically very philanthropic, who does multiple different good things simultaneously. And there's a natural sort of benevolence that is associated with this, a natural sort of selflessness and lack of focus on like identity with like any sort of organization that comes with this this layer, because it's transcended a lot of the things that make people go wrong. Like, so it's transcended the identification with one particular culture or society, which in its way is a virtue, but it can also lead to things like, like nationalism and whatnot. It's often sort of again, pushed away its desires, and not that desires are bad or wrong or anything like that. It's just that it's sort of actually fulfilled most of those needs, so it doesn't necessarily have them anymore to hold on to as a stumbling block. So yeah, there's normally a lot of good things associated with this layer, but it can definitely go wrong. But the main sort of common thread with this layer is like this expanding power that seems to encompass almost everything and envelop everything it touches. So that is the 13th layer, and the next series I'm still working on it, but it should be I should be back with an intro video for the next series soon. I just have to think about which of the next few topics that I'm going to dive into next. So until then, I will talk to you guys later, and have a good one. And if you found this layer system interesting, if you found it enlightening, if you found it crazy, if you found it stupid, if you found it wrong, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. I do read your feedback. I promise. I just might not respond to all of it. All right, but thank you. All right, bye.